how many times you need to make the greatest comeback of your life before you accept that maybe the comeback isn't the problem. Maybe you're all right at getting your shit together, but what you struggle with is keeping your shit together. So what you need is an operating system to make the greatest comeback of your life permanently. I call it the iOS operating system. If you have a better name, let me know in the comments. But it works like this. So we're going to track inputs, which is what we do. Then we're going to measure outputs, which is what we get done. And we're going to optimize everything that we do for outcomes, so the results that we receive. The operating system works like a double infinity loop. So the outcome informs the output, which informs the input, so that you can change the output to change the outcome. Now, if that doesn't make sense, don't worry, we're going to cover everything in the video, and you'll see that this isn't actually that complicated once you implement it for yourself in what you're trying to do. But why is this important? Well, it's important because it gives you awareness of everything you need to achieve anything you want, and as a bonus, it makes you notice when you're sliding into a rut. Okay? But before we get into the operating system, like technically how to implement it yourself, I want to show you why locking in is one of the main reasons why your comebacks keep failing. All right, so here's a question for you. When you lock in, what exactly are you locking into? For most people, it's going to be something like early mornings, clean eating, limited time on social media, and maybe an exercise routine. Basically, the good habits of a healthy person. But why do any of that? Like, think about it. Why do any of that? And this is where most people start to go wrong, because they try to lock in and do the things that they think they should do in order to fix themselves. But this fix yourself view violates our nature as humans, because we evolved in the wild. We evolved to build tools. A polar bear, for example, in the Australian outback, and a kangaroo in the tundra would both die. Humans are the only ones that can live at the pole and the equator and everywhere else in between and build tools in order to navigate our environment. The very nature of our consciousness is to be able to scan our environment, find problems, and then build tools to fix them. Why do you think we have cars, roads, and the internet? Well, they're tools to do what we want. Now, this is a super important distinction. You improve and fix yourself when you build tools in the outside world to solve those problems. Most people just don't get this, and that's why their comebacks keep failing. You don't have a project to lock into. And because you don't have something that occupies your attention is going to go to the path of least resistance. When I say project, I don't mean a project that's given to you by your boss or manager at work. I don't mean something that you wouldn't do if you didn't get paid to do it. And I'm not talking about something that you have to do or something that you think you have to do to be impressive to other people. When I say project, I'm talking about something that you decide that's on your terms, done and is done your way, and is actually what you want to do. Without a project, your discipline, consistency, and habits mean nothing. There's no context, there's no story that you're going to attach this thing to, there's no clarity on what you're building towards, and you have nothing to measure progress against. This is a very vulnerable, dangerous position to be in, because your sense of progress is now resting on your habits, which is on a thin sheet of fragile consistency. You miss a workout, for example, and then you feel like a failure. And to numb yourself of that pain, you start to scroll your life away, which only makes yourself feel more ashamed of yourself and more of a failure. And then you go to bed late and then you snooze in the morning, which only adds more fuel to this shame fire that you have. And before you know it, you're making more bad decisions. And that's exactly how you slide into a rut. So to stop the slide, you need an operating system that sets a direction, that allows you to steer towards that direction, that gives you something to measure progress against, and attaches meaning to your habits and your consistency. This is exactly where the iOS operating system comes in. Now, I'm going to give you an overview of how and why this system works the way it does, and then we'll get into the practical steps for you to implement it yourself. All right, so imagine you're on a boat that's sailing the seas. It wouldn't be very much fun if this boat was just sailing around aimlessly. But if you had a destination in mind, something you're actively pursuing, then it'll become a fun adventure. We need outcomes that signal that we're moving in the right direction and making progress towards this destination. And if we're not making progress, then we need to change what we're doing, because more of something that doesn't work just gets us nowhere. We are always optimizing what we do for the outcomes that we want to receive. But here's the tricky part. So psychologists know that the biggest drain of motivation is feeling like we're not making any progress. And there's a lot of reason why people give up on their goals, but the big one, as I'm sure you know, is not getting any results. So the issue is external results like getting views on YouTube videos, or getting sales in business, or getting dates in life, is that they're usually outside of your locus of control. Meaning that you can do everything right and unfortunately still not get the results that you're after. This means that if you make your source of motivation the dopamine you get from these external wins, you put yourself in a very vulnerable position when the wins stop. And you better believe that they are going to stop. So this is why we measure outputs, not outcomes. We want to measure effort, not results. But we should be careful here, because we want to track inputs, not measure inputs. You can sit at your desk for 8 hours a day and achieve absolutely nothing, but you're completely wasting your time at that point. And obviously we don't want to do that. So the output informs the input, and then you track the input so that you can change it to get a different output. Now this works to stop the slide into a rut, because you measure your output, and when you notice that your output is suffering, you can look at your inputs and know exactly what you need to do in order to change it. That's the system in a nutshell. So we're now going to get tactical about how you can implement each one of these aspects of the operating system into your own life. Okay, optimizing outcomes. So the first step of starting a project isn't starting the project, it's selecting a destination that you want to pursue. Or in other words, it's selecting a problem that you want to solve in your life. Because by solving that problem, you will reach a place that you want to be. Now, you want to select a problem that causes you pain and that you don't want to experience anymore. And usually you already know what this is, but if you're not sure, just ponder on it for a bit. According to self-determination theory, it really doesn't matter what problem you do solve. As long as you're solving a problem, that's the right thing to do. There is no wrong answer here. And when you do have a problem that you want to solve, you need to think about what outcomes you need to receive in order to see meaningful progress towards that destination. And here are 3 projects that I have built in the past and that I'm still currently working on, so you can see the way that I set this up. For example, a while ago, I really hated being skinny fat. So the destination I set was a muscular body at 12% body fat and a fat-free mass index of 24. The outcomes that I'm optimizing for is strength increasing most weeks, my body weight going down on a cut or up on a bulk. I also had some social anxiety when I was younger, and I still do to some extent. So the destination I made for this social confidence project was feeling confident talking to anyone, anywhere, at any time. And the outcome that I'm optimizing for is, if I feel like I have something to say, I want to be able to say it. Like, that's the outcome that I'm optimizing for. Now, the project that I'm working on for the YouTube channel is that the problem I'm solving is I don't want to get another soul-sucking job. And the destination that I'm trying to reach for this thing is 50K per month from a one-person business that I enjoy. The YouTube channel and the subsequent products that I'll make for you guys. And the outcomes I'm optimizing for right now is increasing my return viewership of the YouTube channel each 28-day period. So if I'm not doing that, I need to change what I'm doing. All right, so we need to pause here for a moment. This table makes the process look really clean and simple, but it's anything but that. It really is quite messy. It took me a lot of time, many years, to understand what problem am I actually trying to solve, what am I actually trying to achieve, and what outcomes am I actually want to optimize for. For example, it took me 8 years to realize that I didn't want to be extroverted. I just had this social anxiety that I didn't want to experience anymore. And it's taken me a long time to pinpoint exactly what social confidence looks like to me and what outcomes feel natural to optimize for. These are things I'm still working on, by the way. I haven't achieved them entirely yet, but I have made a lot of progress on each of them in the last several years. And you have to realize that this is an iterative process to know exactly where you're going to place these goalposts. It's going to take a lot of time to learn enough about yourself and the world around you to know exactly what you're trying to do here. Okay, so measure outputs. Now that you have outcomes that you want to receive, you need to think about how you're going to get those results. And in the project examples that I gave just before, these are the outputs that I will give for each of them. For my fitness project, the output that I will be measuring is 4 high effort gym sessions per week, 2 nutritious meals, and approximately 3 snacks per day that meet my macros. For the social confidence project, it's attempting to have 1 conversation with a stranger when I'm away from home. And for the business project, it's making 1 newsletter per week that I can turn into a YouTube video. Now, when we measure these outputs, there's really only 2 things that we're trying to do. The first is steer towards the outcomes that we want to receive. And the second is to recognize and catch slides into ruts early. So I'm going to restate these so you can see how they steer towards the outcomes. I'm going to do 4 high effort gym sessions per week. That increases my strength so that I get a muscular body that's 12% body fat and eventually a fat-free mass index of 24. I'm going to have 1 conversation with a stranger so that I learn that if I have something to say, I'm comfortable saying it, then that will allow me to feel confident talking to anyone, anywhere, at any time. I'm going to write 1 newsletter per week and turn it into a YouTube video so that I can increase my monthly audience each month and eventually release products that will make me 50K per month while doing something that I love to do. Now, to catch a slide, I measure my mood and my energy. So if I begin to notice that I'm feeling tired and I have thoughts about skipping the gym, I can then go look at my inputs and see what haven't I been doing. How has my sleep been? What's my nutrition been like? Have I had any time outside? Have I been social at all? Like, all of these things contribute to your mood and your energy because mood follows action, right? The output is the mood and the action are the inputs. So if you track the inputs, so if you measure the output and you already are tracking the inputs, you know exactly what you need to change. It really is that simple. All right, so track inputs. When I say track inputs, I'm not talking about tracking all your habits in an app or a spreadsheet because that's annoying, it's tedious, and it's not fun. And honestly, I think trying to optimize your life to that extent isn't a very healthy thing to do. I've heard horror stories of people who developed eating disorders because they got too obsessive and pedantic about tracking the macros. So we're not going to do this. I'm going to show you how to track your inputs for your projects without being an obsessive maniac about it that ruins your life. So for the examples we've been working on, the input for a fitness project would be, I'm going to do a 90-minute workout that follows a structured plan. I have macro, nutrient, and sleep targets that I'm going to hit For my social confidence, it's putting myself into an environment while being open and present for 60 minutes per day so that I can take advantage of social opportunities. And for the business project, it's 2 hours of writing from 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. Obviously, I do a lot more than that, but it's just to give you an idea of how the input works. So we're constantly measuring the output and changing the input so that we achieve the output, so that we achieve the outcome. Now, tactically on a daily basis, it looks like this. You'll have an output you will do, and then during that time you'll produce you have an input that you'll do, and during that time you'll produce an output that is optimized for the outcome that you want to receive. And if you do that, you've won the day, right? You've seriously won the day. And this is super important. Do not try to solve more than one problem at a time, because you won't have the bandwidth to do it. You're going to get distracted, you'll end up getting discouraged, and then you'll slide into another rut. So focus on one thing, just one thing at a time. If you do this system, you will be getting results, you'll feel proud of your effort, and you'll be able to catch ruts as they happen, and at that point you become rut proof. So give it a go. It really isn't as complicated as it seems once you try it for yourself. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And if you head over to my Substack, just send me a DM there. Appreciate you guys. Keep building, and I'll see you in the next video.